Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Jeannine Luby. And I'm so excited to have my guest today. And of course, you've heard me say that so many times because I love talking to women. I love being able to introduce new women to my listeners. And I'm excited because I've never met Lori before. We've never spoken other than some brief transactions on Facebook. And I will say, and I've said this before, and I think it kind of bears repeating that understand that social media can be pretty toxic, but at the same time, don't forget that it can also help connect people and it can also provide community. So, I know sometimes we have this tendency to want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I know that expression is probably overused, but, turn away from the toxic stuff, but you can also turn into little communities, groups that you feel comfortable in. And I believe it was actually one of those groups for women that Lori and I kind of got connected. And so that's how, and I've mentioned this several times before about different guests that I did not even know before in person. Some I've never even met yet in person, but I feel like I know because of the nice connection that we were able to create. So that is how I got to know my guest today. And like I said, I really don't know her too much. So I really can't wait to dive in because she does a lot of cool things. So let me introduce this week's guest, Lori Prashker Thomas. Welcome, Lori.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And it's funny when you did reach out to me, I think through that women's group, I of course had, it's funny, even though it's online and we had not met in person, because we are connected to so many of the same people, I think
Yep.
I was seeing your posts anyway. And I think we might have been connected on Instagram, but I was seeing your posts from other people's posts or like seeing you mentioned in their posts. And I'm like, I think I've been like kind of seeing this woman, but even though I don't really know her, so I kind of feel like I know a little bit about you.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's good to know at least. Yeah.
Yes, your presence is out there. Your presence is being felt. So before we get into, you do a lot. You have photography. You're a wedding officiant. You're a paralegal. I don't know if you still do. Notary public is listed on your list of
Yep.
things there. So many wonderful things that you do. But let me ask you first, if you don't mind. And this question I ask, and some people will answer it and just be like, "Yeah, I'm from the area. I'm not from the area. Whatever." Other people might talk for 30 minutes straight without a breath. Tell me a little bit about you, whatever you want to share. Like, if you grew up in the area, if you're a transplant, or just, although I don't like how that sounds, it's like an organ that came to be, but
I am actually from Kingston, Pennsylvania. I grew up here. I did leave. I left for many years, and then due to circumstances, I moved back. And at first, I really wasn't sure how long I was going to be here. It was supposed to be temporary to come back, but I've been here now, close, been back for a little over 25 years.
oh, wow.
And you know what? For as much as I may poo-poo this place from time to time, I wouldn't change it only because I was here for my parents when they both passed. My daughter grew up here, with her grandparents. Um, so I think that's really important, is that I found my own little group. Um, you know, I'm very much well, I was very much a loner. It doesn't seem that way now, but I tell everybody I'm an extroverted introvert.
Yes, that's so funny you say that because people who listen or who know me are probably like, Jesus, Jeannine, would you stop talking about that? We're here because I would say I don't know if I'm an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert because I am someone like, when I was growing up, I had really good grades, but I was not social. I was not in clubs, not in sports. I didn't even really raise my hand too much, but
That was me.
yeah, that's totally me. And now like I do stand-up comedy. I've taught part-time in college. So, but if I go into a networking event and I don't know someone, I have a really hard time going, especially if people are already talking, like almost like, hey, pay attention to me. I'm not comfortable getting the attention to me, but once I have it, I'm like, hello, my baby. Like,
I actually understand that. I totally get that. I was, well, I am and was a theater kid and a dance kid, but I was always in the background, which was fine with me. I was perfectly happy with that. So I actually understand that. However, with everything that I do, I am in front and center in a lot of things. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that aspect of it. I don't like going in and like not knowing anybody, but once I start talking, I'm usually okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I mean, I tell people I'm a Joan of many trades. I'm co-owner of Shadowcatcher Photography with my husband. I am owner and lead celebrant at Ceremonies by Lori. I am the director of I Picture Hope. I'm a motivational speaker and an award-winning author. So it's a lot. And yes, I am still a paralegal and notary and all those things too.
Wow. So I imagine you've perfected being like someone that just stands in the closet for 2 minutes to get refreshed. You don't really nap or sleep or anything.
Yes, and my husband always says that the city of Kingston or the borough of Kingston can run off of the electricity that comes off my head at night.
Like,
Because I
how do you
don't,
shut that down, right?
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's always something. It's always, and then, being a wife and a mother and a grandma and a bubby, you know, so I'm always going. Um,
So you're
yeah.
certainly
So
never bored, that's for sure.
no, no, sometimes I wish I was, uh, just to catch a break a little bit. But this is my life and I will, I also, I will take every day and I'm grateful for every day because a few years back, I shouldn't technically still be here. So I am very grateful for what I have and what I do.
Do you mind sharing what was there an illness or and if you don't want to talk about it,
No, no,
that's
no.
fine too.
I talk about it openly because it's something that's not typically discussed. So on the first part of it, I am a suicide survivor, so that's part of it. But 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago now, at the beginning of COVID, I was very, very ill, not with COVID. I had something called Ludwig's angina, which is it's an infection that happens underneath your tongue and spreads either down your throat and up to your brain. And most people are misdiagnosed, and most people don't live from it because it is misdiagnosed. So I had gone to Geisinger, went into the white tent, that was there for COVID. They swore up and down I had COVID. I did not. I tested negative every step of the way. Um, and I was diagnosed with Ludwig's angina by an amazing maxillofacial surgeon, OMFS doctor. And he fought for me during that time. But there were some nights apparently that my husband and my family had to make some really tough decisions. I was intubated for, I think, 14 days. Um, I had to relearn how to speak and, form sentences and eat and like do all the things again. Because I didn't really understand what was going on. So I always tell people I lost about 30 days of my life.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, I'm very grateful to be here.
Now, did you get care? Were you then diagnosed outside the area, or did you have a doctor here who
No,
diagnosed you?
so he's no longer at Geisinger, unfortunately. Dr. Abdul Latif was at Geisinger. I believe I don't know if he was head of the OMFS, but he was very high up within their ranks. And he was actually off duty or was getting off duty, and he stayed because of me. And without him, I would not be here. He was the one that diagnosed me and fought for me because they had to do surgery. I had, I think, 4 surgeries in 3 days for the infection. Yeah, and I guess good thing I don't remember most of it. Um, but I was diagnosed here at Geisinger, Wyoming Valley. Um, I had amazing care during COVID without my family being there. The nurses and the doctors really stepped up. I cannot say that enough. I know we all have our issues, but I really cannot say enough good things about the ICU nurses and the step down units and all of that, because they would sit with me and watch like RuPaul's Drag Race with me. And they would, just to make sure that we had human contact, because
Right.
family couldn't be there. And at that point also, I couldn't figure out how to use my phone to FaceTime with my family. Like my brain just was not working properly. So
Wow.
yeah, so it was very scary. So when I came home, I had a lot of rehabbing to do. And my boss was amazing. The attorney that I work with at Lehman Law, she really stood by me and made sure, that everything was okay. And so many other people that I was able to recover. And I still have things that, I didn't have before because of it, but these are things that I will gladly take because I'm here.
Wow. Well, and you said that's rare, so you
It is.
probably had no idea yourself what was happening, right?
No, so I had been complaining. I thought I had an ear infection, honestly, for months. Now, I had been in a car accident back in March of 2020. And I just assumed that everything was related to that. But I kept going into my primary care saying, I have an ear infection, I have an ear infection, I have an ear infection. I did not have an ear infection. And they kept saying I didn't, but they would put me on a med, or they would do, because we just couldn't figure out to get me any type of relief. And then the day that that my husband said, you are going to the emergency room, I also have, well, one of the things I have is rheumatoid arthritis, so I'm autoimmune compromised. And I said, I'm not going into the hospital. Everybody's told me to stay away, stay away, stay away. I'm not going, and ended up, I'm not a napper. And I had gone to my primary care that morning. They did a CAT scan on me. They said, okay, we'll wait for the results. I woke up, I think we got home around 11. I went to sleep immediately, got home at 6 o'clock and just could not bear the pain anymore.
Mm.
I also couldn't breathe. I couldn't talk, like it was bad. And everybody has said if I didn't go to the ER that night, I probably would not be here. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, it is typically misdiagnosed because you don't know about it. I think I'm only like the fifth case that Geisinger had.
Oh, wow. Is this a relatively, I don't want to say it's a new disease, but maybe that they're relatively newly aware of, or
I don't really know.
hmm.
What I've been told is that sometimes they misdiagnose. They tell people who don't have it that have it, and then vice versa.
Uh,
But I guess I was a classic case, even though the guy, Geisinger tried, well, not my doctor, but some of the doctors tried to say, oh no, she has COVID, and that just was not the case.
mm. Yeah,
So,
so that's scary to hear. I mean, I'm so happy that you got, when you did get the care, you got the right care
yeah,
and that they were also supportive of you. That's a good, great, wonderful outcome. But it is
yes.
scary sometimes with those rarer kind of illnesses or
Yeah,
diseases, because obviously, if they don't have experience with it, then they're not really going to know what it looks like. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I'm glad so obviously that makes sense why you're like, hey, I'm grateful and living my life. Um,
mhm.
is that tied to, because I don't even know where to begin with all these things that you do. Has that been what you wrote about, or did you write about something else?
So my book actually is well, it started off as my story about being a Jewish birth mother. I placed a child for adoption. And so that's how my story started, but it morphed into something so much more. I mean, that's still a big part of it. But it's also about survival of being a suicide survivor, survival of domestic violence, survival of health issues. So it kind of morphed into something completely different, but it didn't publish when it was originally supposed to. And I'm guessing there was a reason for that.
Yeah. So what is the name of your book and how can people learn about picking a copy up so they can read your story?
Yep. So it is called From Mistakes to Miracles. You can get it on, well, you can go to my website, which is loriprashkerthomas.com. And there's a whole bunch of places you can purchase. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. There's a whole bunch. You can do an audio version as well, on Audible. And I believe there are some others as well. I'm sorry off the top of my head. I
Oh no,
don't
that's
remember,
fine. That's a great
but
start for people anyway.
yes.
So how when did that come out then?
October of 2022.
Okay, so it's been out for a little bit now, so
It
you
has,
probably
and I
know it's
won, I won the Book Impact Award in 2024, which I'm
oh
really proud
wow.
of.
That's
Um,
phenomenal.
yeah, I'm really proud of that. So,
That's
so
fantastic. Now, who gives that award out?
it's the impact, it's the Impact Award. That's the name of it.
Okay.
And then I won for the kind of a self-help
Okay.
and biography.
Okay. Oh wow.
So,
Well, that's great. And it must be so sharing your story must be a little bit cathartic for you, but also
oh
nice to
yeah,
know that other people are learning from it or gaining some
yes,
inspiration from it.
yeah. I mean, I literally talk about everything from being bullied all the way through, being bullied all the way through elementary school and high school, all the way through surviving and thriving now. And it does span, it spans a good majority of my life. There are some missing pieces. But for the most part, it spans, a good portion of my life. And yeah, it really was, it closed a lot of things for me. Um, and I've gotten actually a few apologies from people from, the past. But really I did it because so it started off because nobody in the Jewish faith, adoption is huge, but it's adoption from the adoptees and the adopting family's point of view. It's never discussed from the birth parent, and typically I don't exist. Now we all know that things happen, and Jewish women do place their children for adoption, but it's not discussed. You're either sent away, or I had one woman, I will never forget, she's 90 something years old, who said, or you get put into put away,
Mm,
she's made the comment about being placed in an attic. Now, I don't know if it was her or somebody she knew, but we don't, and it's not discussed. And I said, you know what, enough. There are other women out there like me who need to know that they're not alone. And I just felt that it was time to tell my story. And, obviously with the permission of my adopted, my birth child, and the rest of my family and everybody else, but it was just time. It was time to stop hiding.
mm. And have you heard from anyone that might have said to you, "Thank you so much for writing this"? Because I mean, there's got to be women out there that said that.
I don't get it very often, but I do get it.
Mm,
And again, it's something that's not discussed. So a lot of people, I'm assuming, that read it won't reach out, and that's fine. But I always say, if I made a difference in one person's life, then I've done my job.
yeah.
Then the book
Now,
has done its job. I've done my job, you know. So there are
let,
people, there's an organization called In Schiffer's Arms that that's how it all kind of started for me. Was I was reading an article in, I don't remember if it was some publication, on, I think it was Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. And I was reading it and I'm like, this is my story. And I reached out to the author immediately. I will never forget, it was about 6 a.m. and I emailed her. And within an hour, I had a response from her saying,
wow.
we need to talk. I'm away on vacation, but we definitely need to talk. We spoke, and then they put me on the board.
Wow.
So,
That was a good connection then, a good
yeah.
contact. Yeah. Yeah. And
So
let me ask you, so I grew up Catholic, so pardon my ignorance. So is it now, I mean, not that exactly the Catholics were out there like, yay, in certain circumstances, but is it something with the Jewish faith that makes this especially different or
It's just not talked about. Like I said, I just typically don't, well, I don't, according to most, exist.
Hmm.
Jewish birth mothers don't exist. And
Hmm.
that's just so not the truth. But it also boils down to, I, I'll have conversations with, specifically within the Hasidic community. And, I mean, I'm all about a baby. Like, give me baby cheeks and I'm happy as a clam. But we'll get to talking and I would talk to them and suddenly it would come up that they were adopted. And I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. Um, are you still in contact with the birth parents? And they're like, oh no, we wish they didn't exist.
Hmm.
And depending on the mood that I'm in, I will either explain who I am and, how that statement hurts. Or I will just say, oh, that's nice. And I will leave the conversation.
Hmm.
Um, and I get that conversation happens more than I would like to admit.
Hmm. Yeah, that must be difficult.
So I think from, the few conversations that I've had, even with people of other religions, if you've placed a child for adoption, you're not discussed. You don't talk about it. It's not discussed. It's very taboo. It's very hush hush and don't bring embarrassment and, so on and so forth.
Hmm. Wow. So have you connected with you mentioned after the article, do you continue to like have contact with other women that share these experiences?
So I do through social media.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer on the board. I haven't been for quite a few years, but I do through social media. I will get responses every now and again from different posts or, hey, I read your book completely by accident. Came across my feed on TikTok and I decided to purchase, and it's like this book has been like amazing. So, I do get some, some of that through social media.
That's nice. That I mean, it must feel good to get the good, I mean, it always for everybody feels good to know that you've done something that people resonate with or that they
Yeah,
just feel good about. That's great.
absolutely.
So let me ask you, so I don't even know, like I said, you have so many different hats. So wonderful that you received that award for your work. Um, you're a paralegal, you're a notary. Those sound like great things, but I'm gonna ask about a couple other things because
That's
I'm
fine.
very curious. I've never had a person on before who was a wedding officiant, and I just find that so interesting. Could you tell me how you started with that? And I want to learn about that.
Sure. So I had friends in Salt Lake City, Utah, who could not find a rabbi to marry them because they are a same-sex couple. And they asked me if I would become ordained. Now, at the time, I didn't know if that was legal. Um, but once I found out it was, and I went through the process, I married them. Because I've always been a believer in love is love. I don't care what that love looks like. Everyone deserves to be married. If you want to be married, you can be married. Does not matter. Um, so that's how it started. I then brought that back to Pennsylvania with me, and uh, same-sex marriage was not legal yet in Pennsylvania. But when it was, and it wasn't long after that, but I was asked to ordain another wedding of another LGBTQ plus couple. And I took that and I ran with it. I'm very honored to say that I am one of the first three officiants within Pennsylvania to do an LGBTQ plus wedding. And I'm very honored and very stoked to say that.
That's awesome. So now when you say ordain, and forgive me
Yes.
if I should know because I don't mean the ignorance,
No.
are you ordained? Is it associated with a certain religion? Is it in the Jewish faith or is it in any particular faith?
No, I'm considered a non-denominational wedding officiant.
Okay. Okay.
I will marry anyone, just about. I do have, certain limits, but it takes a lot for me to say no. I am, proud to say that I am all inclusive of anyone. But I originally became ordained online through Universal Life Church. I don't really align with them. So I got reordained through the American Marriage Ministries. And my title technically is rabbi because that was the one that resonated with me most. The only time I use that is when I'm doing a wedding ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
Or signing the license, really. But I've also taken it to a whole other level. I'm also a humanist celebrant. I've done brick and mortar. So my title actually is 110% legitimate. Um, may not have started that well. It started that way, and I shouldn't say it may not have started that way, because it is in most states you can get ordained online and you're good to go. But I am registered, in many states. I have teams all over the U.S., but that's how it started, and I've just really just kind of ran with it. At the time when I started, there weren't many of us in the area. And now there's, we call them Uncle Bob's and Aunt Mary's in the, in the celebrant world. But, I also always say it's not as easy as people think. Because there are a lot of legalities that have to be met.
Mm,
And if you don't know that, I honestly, I sadly have to remarry some people
mm,
because the legalities were not met, or the license wasn't signed properly, or the person wasn't ordained to begin with. So,
okay.
yeah. So, I mean, that's how it started. And I still remember, I tell this story a lot, that when I first started and I would be going out to do a wedding, the first thing out of my husband's mouth Michael would say to me, "Is this legal?" Yes, it's legal. I promise you it's legal because I've done my due diligence. I work for attorneys. I cover all of my bases anyway. So,
Yeah.
but now it's a lot of people, a lot of relatives of people, because people are free or want to gift it to them, and that's lovely. But again, there's a lot more that goes into it than people think.
Yeah, if you watch, and again, this is what my knowledge of it is, you see it on on shows and
Right.
movies, and it's just like, hey, I just got ordained 2 minutes ago,
Yep.
online. And it's like, wow, is it really that easy? I have no idea.
So it is. It is that easy. But there's a lot more. Like I said, I've been doing this since 2011. I am a certified professional wedding officiant. Um, and I am I've done all of the work that has gone through it. I've done just about 750 weddings since
Wow.
2011.
Oh my goodness.
So, I love what I do, and now I have team members that I absolutely adore, throughout the US and here. And, it's really become, for me, love is love. And that is what, love should not be about gender, should not be about religion. It should be about who you want to be with.
Yeah. Yeah, so now, and obviously, so now that gay marriage, or LGBTQIA is legal by the state, right? So that's, it's a different thing from, I remember years ago, I don't even know if it would have been 2009, I forget what year. One of my dear friends, unfortunately, who has passed from cancer, but she did it when it wasn't really legal, but she had, I think she called it a commitment ceremony, where
Yes,
it was like
yes.
they did find someone who was, I think, a minister of some sort,
Yep.
Universal Church or something, and they read, but it was beautiful. The passages they chose were from different religions or
The only
proverbs.
The only thing that's different between a commitment ceremony and a wedding ceremony is the legality. I write just as many commitment ceremonies even now as I do wedding ceremonies.
Hmm.
The only thing at the end of it is I can't pronounce you married.
Mm-hmm. I see.
I
And so,
can
but people could choose that if they prefer for whatever reason.
absolutely,
Okay.
how I usually end them is you are now partners in life.
Hmm.
Nobody knows. I've had, you know, all genders say to me, "We don't want to be husband and wife." Okay, how would you like me to pronounce you? And people don't know, and some people also who aren't literally, who maybe didn't get their marriage license in time, or things like that, where I just say partners in life, and nobody's any of the wiser.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So now you've done, wow, since 2011. You've been doing this for a really long time.
I
So
have,
that has to be also a very joyful thing for
yeah.
you, because you're really integral in connecting two people for their partnership in life together. That's
Yes.
that's how does that feel like? And how do you keep it from becoming like a job that like, oh, it's another day? Because it is special for them, obviously.
Absolutely. And I say this to people all the time. I still get nervous before every wedding. And when I tell people that, and then I continue on to say, when I stop getting nervous, it's time for me to hang up my coat. And that not only goes for officiating, that goes for photography, that goes for writing, that goes for like, once I stop that feeling, I don't care anymore. It's become a job. And not that it isn't a job, but it doesn't feel like one. I love to write their love stories. I love meeting with the couples and the marriers who, will literally give me the ins and outs, of their of their love story and things like that. And I just sit there. I mean, I'm also a sucker for love. I'm a romantic at heart, always have been, and there's no shame in that. And so I'm all about that. Do I find that I find some officiants like that? 110%. The other thing that I tell people who call me, and this may not be the right thing to do for business, but it's what I believe, my conversation usually starts with, I am not for everybody and everybody is not my client.
Mm, yeah. Well, and that should be true. I mean, I know it's hard because people don't want to, as you say, lose business, whatever, but there's a reason for that, obviously. You want it to be the right
Absolutely.
fit so everyone's happy all around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am a firm believer in that. And, sometimes we're just not the right fit. If you want a more traditional ceremony with, a Catholic mass, and I mean, obviously I can't do that. But if it, and there are times where our personalities just clash, and
Mm,
that's okay. I mean, I now go by I now go with what my gut says. The few times that I didn't, they were not my couple and I should not have been there. And I think it was probably very noticeable. I try to hide it as much as I can. But I'm not for everybody. And, I'm not the giddy schoolgirl, I'm going to write you a ceremony that people are going to remember.
yeah. So when you say right, like you're sitting down and you're learning about, as you said, their love
Mhm.
story. So
Yep.
you're writing like, I don't want to compare it to like a homily that a priest would give, but you're really giving them some words that kind of honor them and the commitment they're making, but also their personalities and things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. From the I do's or the we do's, all the way through their love story, all the way through their vows to how you're pronounced. Everything that I write is cut. I have not reused a ceremony since 2011.
Wow. Wow. But that has to, I mean, I would imagine that also keeps it joyful for you too and
Yeah,
original because
yeah.
no two people are the same and no two
No, absolutely
stories are
not.
the same. Yeah.
Absolutely not. And the great thing for me is that I've married, parents, and then I've married their children.
Oh wow.
And vice versa. I've married the children and then I've married a parent and a step parent or just parents in general. And that's always when they come back to me, that means the world to me. Even if it's no more than what I call the make it legal mini moni, which is a 2-minute ceremony. But it's the legalities, but I do a mini ceremony. And, even if that's all that was done and people still come back to me after that, or, they're doing a vow renewal on their first anniversary or their fifth anniversary or their 10th anniversary. I love that. Like that means I made an impact. And that's all anybody wants to do in this world is
Yeah.
make an impact on someone's life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you're at such a beautiful celebratory place in life. Without I don't want like asking details from clients, but is there certain ones that were especially exciting or joyful or memorable or in the way that they did something, whether it was the location or how they did it?
So I have quite a few. I mean, I can remember most of the weddings, which is really amazing, because I always find something special with each couple. I mean, anything from the ring exchange or the shot that somebody may take. Uh, All the way to going down a 7-mile dirt road, going, where is the GPS taking me? And then you end up at this amazing mansion at the end of this road in the middle of Berwick.
Wow.
And the overlook was amazing. Like you just never know.
Yeah.
And I look at the couples and I go, where did you find this place? It's amazing. Like, and then I think about it for photography. I'm like, oh, I need to remember this so that I can come back with, client A, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever done any locations that were like really offbeat or untraditional, like in a hot air balloon or anything
I've
strange
not
like
done
that?
a hot air balloon yet because we're in northeastern Pennsylvania and that doesn't happen quite that often.
True, true.
Um, I have a lot of friends who are out west that have done that in Arizona, and that is on my bucket list uh,
Nice.
to do. But I mean, I've done, beach. I've done um, some, some places that you would not necessarily think of as a wedding venue or have a wedding there, but have come out, and I can't really say where. But it really, everything every ceremony I've done, there's always been something special about that ceremony. Um, but yeah, the hot air balloon is on my bucket list of things. The other bucket list item, and it's gonna sound really cheesy, I want to do like a one of the TV shows, like Love Is Blind, or something
Okay.
like one of those, like Married at First Sight. I want to be one of them.
90-Day fiance,
90
something
Day
like that.
Fiance. Well, funny, I do actually quite a few K1 visa weddings here, ceremonies
Okay.
here.
And
But
that's for like
yeah,
citizen, like it's to get people to stay in the country kind of thing, or
some have been, some are here just to stay. But some have been together for 8 or 10 years and they just finally want to be together and the K1 visa just came through for whatever
hmm,
reason.
okay.
So, but
Wow.
yeah, that's also on my bucket list of things that I want to do.
Hey, and you've done so many, so that's anything's a possibility, right? At this point. That's really
Absolutely.
cool. Have you ever had like a service or a ceremony where things just were like, okay, it's pouring rain, or like where you've had to turn something into like, okay, we got to find the positive here.
Yeah. Well, I just have a plan B. I always say that, especially if it's an outdoor ceremony. I always say, is there a plan B?
Mhm.
Because you don't know what the weather is going to be. We do live in northeastern Pennsylvania, or if I'm in Salt Lake, or if I'm in Washington, like, I'm like, is there a plan B, a just in case?
Yeah. Well, that's smart. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've been, I've been, in places, and I have a to-go kit that I carry with me as a planner, or day of coordinator, and I have clear umbrellas in there. So I've had to do that. Uh, or I've had it where, I'm covering the bride and the bride, or the bride and the groom, and I'm getting soaked.
Mm,
Because I don't want them getting wet. I
yeah.
will deal with it. It's funny because I actually have one of my ceremonies here, and like all my things are like in plastic. Yeah, they're in plastic covers. So like, I can still read the ceremony even if it's
Yeah.
pouring down rain.
Just wipe the water away there. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you're also you and your husband have shadow catcher photography. So hey, oh by the way, I imagine there are packages for weddings?
There are, for both. It's vice versa. But yeah, so it actually started because I actually loved, I've always, since becoming an official or a legal, or whatever you want to call it, photographer. Michael had started Shadowcatcher many, many years ago, but he always says, I took it to where it is now, because he would give away his photos. Because
Mm.
as he says, he's a hippie and just gives them away. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to stop. Your work is too good to be given away. So, but it started off with, that's what I was doing. I was doing wedding photography. That's just what I did.
Yeah.
Um, And I just kept saying, like, there has to be something more that I can do.
Mm,
And the other thing for ceremonies by Lori is that my husband and I got married in front of the magistrate, a local magistrate, who was a friend of the family's and would not change his ceremony.
mm,
I wanted something added to make sure that my daughter was included. He would not do it. And that always used to get like, that would just get me so upset. And my husband and I have renewed our vows several times because I've never had that aha moment. And finally, I said to him, so if I can't find something better, I'm going to make something better.
yes. I love that. You know what? I love that because so I've lived in Scranton my whole life, and while every home place has its problems, I often say every place is home to someone too. And I'm
Right.
someone who loves the people here. I think there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of great businesses, we have beautiful scenery, great architecture. So I've always been a fan. So I say that when I see so many, well, social media, as I said before, can be toxic, but even
Yep.
people in person, like, oh, what's there to do? And I'm like, my eyeballs, after I pick them up and put them back in
Right.
my head, I'm like, are you serious? Like, let me show you. And my thing is, if it's
Yeah,
not here, create it. Right? Like you
exactly.
did. I mean, if it's not here, there's
Exactly.
nothing stopping you from creating it, and then talk to other people who
Yep.
might like it. Now you got a team together, you got a group, and you can make great things happen that way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love
No,
that you said
I am
that.
a firm believer in that.
Yeah.
I am a
So
firm believer in that.
let me ask you though, so you liked it from the photography and you're like, what more can I do? Now, so obviously this is a different take from I have other friends who are photographers who are like, I don't want to do weddings, I don't want to deal with bridezillas. And then I had someone on recently who she was in the shop selling the wedding dresses, and she enjoyed that. And she
Yep.
said honestly for her what she saw were the people around the bride being the
Right.
zillas. So let
Right.
me get your take on that. I'm curious.
Um, so for me, in order to get a shadow catcher wedding, you have to be either a friend of a client or a client. Because I'm not a huge fan of photographing weddings for that reason. But I've actually found that it is more the people around the couple. Specifically, in my cases, in my little world, it's more so the mothers of the grooms or the mothers of the brides.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what the other person said. Yeah.
And that's probably going to get me in trouble, but that's okay. Um,
Well, there's a lot of emotions, and I understand
there
that. As
is,
I
and I
said to
get that,
her,
and there's
yeah,
lots of emotions from the ceremony part of it too. Um, but I also try to do the best for my clients who are the couple.
mm,
The
yeah,
parents are like, "Well, I paid for it, but you're still not my client."
yeah,
So I try to do the best by my client that I can.
yeah. And that makes total sense because I've seen it even in my own family, like the person, like, being perhaps nitpicky with the caterers about
Yeah,
something specific. And it's like, but if the children are like, well, their children, like if the couple is happy, then
right.
isn't that truly literally the only thing
That's
that
the only thing that
matters?
matters.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And
Exactly.
unfortunately the other values get in the way because of course money
Yes,
is money, right? And like
of
egos are
course.
egos, and perhaps someone's trying to relive their own wedding, and you know what I mean, all this stuff gets in there, which
Yes.
really isn't what matters because it is about the couple. Yeah.
It's all about the couple. It's about what they want. And that's what I try to do in every aspect, whether it be photography or officiating or
Yeah.
wedding planning or day of coordinating, any of that. It's about the couple. It's not about anybody else.
Yeah. So you wedding plan as well, so you
I
also,
do.
oh my goodness, all
I
right, so
do.
you,
I
you
also
really like
do
love.
day of coordinating. I also do day of coordinating. Yep, I do it all.
Oh my gosh, wow. So you mustn't get very many weekends off, I would think.
Yep. Nope. Nope, not at all. And actually, for me, wedding season has been starting earlier and earlier. Like it used to be April and May, and now it's February, March for
Oh
me.
wow. Wow.
So,
And now with the photography, then does that mean that you get to work a lot of times with your husband who's also with you?
so the way that we say it is that my husband deals with the inanimate objects that don't talk back, and I deal with the people.
Ah, okay.
However, so Michael does the fine art, does architecture, does uh animals and just nature. I deal with the people, but we do weddings together. And I have always said that even though like we can do a wedding and not talk during the entire thing, we just have to give each other a look. And we know that what the other person has gotten. When I start culling the photos, it's like, oh, I didn't get that, but he did. And if he got it, if he didn't get it, I have it. And we just work really well together in that respect. But he really prefers the inanimate objects that don't talk back.
I think I'd be with your husband on that one. But I mean, and that's, you know what, I think too, I would imagine that there's a different set of skill sets or even gift that comes with that because like I'm
Absolutely.
someone who loves to take pictures when I'm at the state park of the blue
Yep.
heron and all of that. And I personally would much rather do that than dealing with
Yep.
because people have their own, they're moving, they're talking, they're.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. My husband will go out at 4 or 5, 6 in the morning just to get a sunrise,
Mm,
from Boulder Field. Like, and that's his thing, and he's amazing at it. And I always say he doesn't do what I do, I don't do what he does, and it works.
yeah. Well, and that's exactly why, right? You have your own set of gifts, that's
Yep.
wonderful. Yeah, that's fantastic. So a lot of love, I would imagine there. I mean, you're surrounded by love pretty much all the time. With it sounds like you're doing a ton of weddings and you're just
Yeah.
like love all the time. I would feel I would think I should say that must feel so good to have that
I
kind of
love it.
positivity around you.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I wouldn't change a thing. I try to be as positive as I can, especially in the world in which we live. There still is a little bit of happiness out there. And really, there's probably a lot of happiness out there, but it gets overshadowed by everything else. And I don't want to get political. I don't want to go there, but like, I really do love, like, in my space, in my studio, I literally went from a 200 square foot space to a 1,200 square foot space. And, this is my little piece of happiness. And when couples come in and marriers come in and families come in and they're like, your place is so welcoming, that's all I care about. All I care about. I can
Yeah,
shut out the rest, for just that 30 minutes, half hour, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever, and just be.
yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that. And to your point, yeah, not to get political, but I mean there's always heaviness, but especially now too, there's really like
Yeah,
anxiety, stress, all that. But I do agree that we can choose happiness. I find myself on days when I'm
yeah,
feeling like out of control or stressing, whatever, I kind of do, which is probably a grounding kind of exercise where I'm like, how do you feel right now? And I'm like,
right,
oh, you're sitting on a couch, it's comfortable, your house,
right.
it's warm, you have food, you're drinking coffee, you're safe,
Yeah,
and go from there. But we also do have beautiful sunrises, sunsets,
we
and
do.
we've got all that, and that's still joy. So we need to
Yes.
recognize it and take time to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said at the beginning of this, like, I thank goodness every day that I am here to see that day.
Yeah.
And that's where I technically should not have been here.
Well, so it's hard to argue with that when you're sitting there with a good cup of tea or coffee and you're looking at the sun.
Exactly,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
So as we start to wind up, and I want to ask you a little bit about your speaking too. You do that based on the lessons kind of that you talk about in your book,
Yep.
or is that kind of the idea
Yeah,
there?
it is. It's about my book. It's about survivorship. It's anti-bullying, it's being all inclusive. It's all the things that I do, and my life story. I was honored this past year to be the opening speaker at an FSA event, and I told my story. And from beginning to end about, I try to break the stigma of talking about mental illness. And, it's something that needs to be discussed more and more to make it okay for other people to realize that it's okay to talk about it. So I tell my story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I tell it.
Yeah.
So,
And that is so important. I do marketing work for a local chapter of National Alliance on Mental
yep,
Illness, and that's all about that. And
yep,
I took a mental health first aid course, and I'm so happy to see the
yeah,
work that they're doing, especially they
yeah,
work a lot with university students, college students,
yep,
so that they can go out into their professions and fields and destigmatize and offer
absolutely.
the words of kindness and support that people need. Because I
Yeah,
mean, it's so sad to think in 2025 I do laughter yoga. I was doing it as part of a self-care day and for this certain organization I won't name, and they couldn't really call it a mental wellness because there
right,
was still in that particular community there was still like a stigma. And I'm thinking, jeepers, it's 2025, isn't that a
right.
shame? Because we all
Yeah.
have to take care of our mental wellness. Do we really
Yes.
need to be quiet around that or tiptoe around that, you know?
But people don't talk about it because there still is very much a stigma around it. So I try to, get out there and say, hey, here's everything. Here I am. Like it
Yeah.
or lump it, here I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to discuss this. And one of the mantras is it's okay to not be okay.
Mm,
Um, and I have a t-shirt with it and the whole 9 yards. But I do live that way, because there are many days where I'm not okay, but that's okay. And being a suicide survivor, I am very much, uh, about that.
yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, so when I do speak, it's very personal to me.
Yeah.
But I do a lot of things. I do anti-bullying. I do, it's break the stigma of mental health, of discussing mental health, and just everything that has to do with me. And I think
Yeah.
some of the best speakers speak from first person.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, it's the most real thing and it's the most,
Exactly.
when you can, and then when someone sitting there can connect, it's really a beautiful thing because they probably
Exactly.
need to hear that message. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely. Oh, well, I think that's so brave. And I know I always see when I look, sadly, when we look at a lot of times obituaries anymore, a lot of young people maybe,
yeah.
dying by suicide. And I always give
Hmm.
families absolute credit and appreciation for
Yeah.
not, for saying that because they're, I'm imagining they're coming from a place of, you know what, we're not going to hide this because people need to
Right.
talk about this. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And we need to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we need to make, so that everyone feels comfortable. I mean, hiding never helps anything or
No,
like being afraid. Nothing good comes from fear and darkness or things like
no.
that.
And I
Yeah.
was in that place for too many years.
Yeah. Well,
So,
you're certainly in the light now. I have to tell you, my goodness, you are certainly in the light and it looks good on you. I think you're
thank you.
basking in it and you should absolutely. Well, I mean, honestly, I was so excited to talk to you. You have so many wonderful things. I love the theme of you being surrounded by joy and helping couples start their lives together.
Yep.
Is there anything else, a message or anything else that you just said, I really wanted to talk about this and we didn't before we totally wrap up here?
A quick thing, and it's another plug, and I'm sorry.
No, that's
Uh,
okay.
also have a nonprofit. It's called I Picture Hope.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I wanted to
And
ask you about that. Yes.
yeah, and that's really like it's about photography and bringing awareness to cancer survivors and fighters who you don't feel like yourself, you don't feel pretty, or you don't feel whatever, and we try to change that with photography and having a day of for yourself, whether that be beauty, whether that be just mental health, whatever that may be. So I'm really proud. I didn't start the organization, but I took it over, and I am very honored to say that we are growing. I just came back this past July, not just, but back in July from uh, an I Picture Hope photo event in Corpus Christi, Texas. Every year here in NEPA, I do a one big day where we get as many people in as possible in October. We have hair, makeup, everything is donated. The people who come walk away with swag and all of those things. So it's just something that I'm really also very passionate and proud of. So I just wanted to mention that really quickly.
Oh, no, absolutely. So is it, do you do other things throughout the year or is it the focus is on that day where
So
you get,
we, well, so we do, so we just became a 501(c)(3) last year. So we're really just getting everything, started, but we do an event once a quarter. We have one coming up March 23rd at Glam Trend Beauty. We're having a pop-up. So, in Dallas, Pennsylvania. So We're gonna have that, and then, we're doing probably a drag bingo and some other events that'll be coming up and, throughout the year, and then we have the big event, in October 5th. And if anybody does want to sign up for that, it is by lottery because the need is so great.
Mm.
But you can go to ipicturehope.org and fill out the form, and you'll be given a number, and we pull it September 1st. So, but we are always looking for volunteers. We're looking for donations. We're looking for volunteers, whatever you want to do, we are all about it. And I go out throughout the year. I just did a shoot this past weekend for somebody who is actively fighting cancer. They said they had no headshots for themselves, so I went out to their home, did them, and they've gotten them back already. So like, yes, we have a big event, but I do them. If the need is there, I do try to go as quickly as I can.
Mm. So, and at the big event, it's kind of about, I guess you'd say, making them feel special with the
Yep,
hair, the makeup, and then they do get
everything.
photos of themselves. Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
That's great. Well, that's a wonderful organization. So it's ipicturehope.org.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And I will put that in the show notes excuse me, as along with is what I'm trying to say, along with your website. Is it just the one, or is there for the
No, I
shadow
have many.
catchers? You have many. All right. Well, I'll try to include all of those. You'll just have
I
to keep
appreciate that.
scrolling. You keep scrolling, you'll find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much. I really do. I'm so glad you reached out to me. And again, I'm so grateful for that particular group. But again,
Yeah.
I can't say enough to people listening, if you're sick of certain things, parts of the social media, turn to the good stuff because it's also there.
Yep.
We tend to focus sometimes on the negative. It's right in your face. So you might have to look a little bit, but it's there. Different groups, whether you're looking for women empowerment, small business, local business, running groups, all kinds of groups are out there. Survivor groups, they're out there. Look for them so that you can find a place where you find hope and comfort. And that's important. And so someone like Lori, I'm so glad we were able to connect, and check out the show notes to follow the links to all the great stuff that Lori's got going on. Thank you again so much, Lori.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure, and I'm glad we got to connect.
Absolutely. And I look forward now. This is a couple folks that I've only met online. I look forward to seeing you out and about in Northeast PA. I'm sure that our paths
Absolutely.
will cross. In fact, I think where I saw some of your pictures, Anthony Melf, maybe?
Yep.
Yeah, Anthony. You know Anthony, right?
Yep.
He's another one who's all over the place in
He
Northeast
is.
PA.
He
Yeah.
is.
He came to a Northeast NEPA Networkers coffee event, and I was the host or the sponsor, excuse me, for that one. A little over a year ago, he introduced himself, and ever since then, I'm like, oh my gosh, he knows everybody. He's all over town.
He does. I love Anthony. He's great.
Yeah, talk about sunshine. He has a great smile. He's always smiling. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you again, Lori. And thanks to all my listeners. As always, I say check out the show notes for all this interesting information. And if you like this kind of content and you like to hear different voices of women every week on Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl, consider being a podcast sponsor. As I say all the time, it's cheaper than if you have a coffee addiction and you're buying a latte or a matcha every day. I guarantee you for that price or less, you can help to support this content. But also, if you don't have extra cash, remember that it helps to share. Sharing is caring. Share this podcast with a friend, foe, or anyone you know. That is also so truly helpful. So thank you for listening. Thanks for the support. And as I always say, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.